Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Modern Investing on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Starr, and our guest today is Jim Eid from Eid Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you for having me, Sasha. Great to be here. Although it's a mixed day, I guess we can say.
Thank you, Jim. What I wanted to figure out what's happened last week. There was nothing in the media um, generally explaining what was a severe downturn in the stock market last week. There was no real um, reason why would all stocks, including even crypto and even gold and silver, went down somewhat, not really as big as Bitcoin, for example. So is it healthy correction, or was it beginning of a severe um, down movement on the stock market? What's your opinion, the reason, and what it is?
Well, you might recall, Sasha, that I have been predicting since the fourth quarter in December at the latest that there would be a stock market dip in February, and I was going to increase my cash position and hold it to the end of February because I didn't know exactly when the dip would happen, but I expected it. And part of the reason was, and I think part of the explanation for what happened, is that things had just kept going up, and people had been talking about a bubble and worrying about this can't keep going on, and people's anxiety just kept increasing. So I assumed that there would be a period of profit taking, and whether this is profit taking or whether this is the onset of a bear market, I can't tell you. But I do know that it was anticipated that a certain amount of profit taking was going to take place early in 2026. And I thought around the end of January, early February, there would be a sell off. I didn't realize that it would be so broad. You know, I thought it mostly profit taking, and cryptocurrency is beyond me. I don't follow it or track it, and but I hear that it was also there. Precious metals also got hit. So one of the things that has happened is the economy has done poorly compared to, say, going back to the Obama administration, the Biden administration. It's done poorly. The jobs number that we've created have been weak, and we had a report that the January job numbers were not so bad. They would look pretty good. But if you dig a little deeper, they were mostly in healthcare. So again, the Main Street is not doing so well. And people are realizing that this disconnect between Wall Street hitting higher and higher highs and Main Street looking more and more uh, in the throes of a recession. There is this anxiety that exists in the marketplace in general, and there's also the worldwide sell America and buy other things, and I think that was an undercurrent of the massive sell-off that we saw, rather than just the profit taking that I thought was going to happen. I think we have the anti-American sentiment based on things like Trump talking about taking over Greenland, and how he has been able to alienate so many countries, and so that they've been uniting together, so that they can continue to trade and profit from trade with one another, and selling the American dollar, selling American assets, so that they that's taking an enormous hit on the American economy. And I don't think that's going to change until our president changes.
Or even midterm election, if
I,
Democrats could gain the House, maybe even Senate, that could affect, of course, the running of all things. Now, what I've noticed is that there was such a severe, let's call it correction, for example. Um, it, the profit taken Okay, it's one explanation, but the severity of that and the fact that all asset classes at the same time, almost to the minute, all going down, and there is no bottom. There, it's very easy to bring certain stock or even all S&P down. All you do, the market makers acting in
U-
accord together,
Unison, right?
what they're doing, they're just removing their bids. Let's say there is a normal $1,000 bid to buy and 1,000 offer to sell. If you remove your bid or make it say for 100 shares, and once it filled, so the next one going a dollar or dollar and a half lower for another 100 shares, and once it's hit, you take it another dollar and a half lower. So basically, that's so um, sort of happening once in a while. But when everything going down under the same algorithm, I don't believe that there is just a profit taken.
Oh, I
I
agree.
believe there is let's call a spade a spade. It's a manipulation, but by market makers to bring everything down and keep it down for a while. So a lot of people will take their losses. A lot of people will get margin calls and will have to sell and or bring more money and then sell. It doesn't really matter. As remember the old rule of William O'Neill: never pay the margin call, sell. Never bring more money. Keep your money, because once market will go all the way down and will start recovering, then you will use this money to buy real bargains or so on. And based on the market action in the last 2 3 days, you may say that it's a healthy correction. It's a continuation of buy the dip strategy. I don't believe that that's the case yet, although it very looks like by the deep working. But we don't know when it's going to be there. And by the way, a lot of stocks which took beatings, actually, almost all stocks took beating. And now you can see, for example, a stock like Palantir, which is a very popular stock, which was $180 a share or so. It's trading today at 134, and it's not recovering. Actually, it's going lower as we speak, and many other stocks. So this is another situation. Don't buy the dip. Wait until it will find its bottom, stay there a little bit, and will start slowly going higher. That's your entry point. That's where you can actually make a recovery or make profits, depends on your position, or so on. So this is a very interesting phenomenon. So people have to really understand the game the market players are playing and take advantage of that. Don't jump, never pay margin call, sell. In this case, the William O'Neill's rule to sell once you are down 7% on certain securities, sell. Don't torture yourself. 7% loss is nothing. So you will keep your money still intact. You will have your uh, powder available, and then you look for entry. But wait. The virtue of waiting is incredibly important, because people by nature, they want to trade. And sometimes, let's see, Palantir, if it went down from 180 to 150, oh my God, that's a healthy correction. So let's buy. But what is going down from 150 to 130?
Right.
What, you're already in the red, and it can stay for whatever period of time. It may go even lower to 110. Remember, Palantir was a year ago, it was 55 or something. So, and it's not just Palantir. Shouldn't
No,
concentrate
no,
on
of course not.
many. There are many. Although I must admit that Nvidia recovered very quickly and very nicely and still
Yes.
moving forward. But maybe that's anomaly simply because at the end of the month there is a report. the quarterly report of NVIDIA. And based on TSM reporting, I expect NVIDIA will do very well because TSM is supplying most of its chips for NVIDIA. So I expect NVIDIA will do nice on that report. So in sympathy, you may even go for AMD, for example, because it's in the same industry. And
It took a hit.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah, AMD took a hit substantial. So maybe at this point, AMD is just as good buy as NVIDIA. Not don't compare this to companies because essentially, to tell you the truth, in my opinion, AMD is a poor man's NVIDIA.
yeah,
Although it's
that's
AMD
fair
is
to
much
say.
more expensive than NVIDIA, so how come it could be poor man's
Yeah,
NVIDIA? Probably it
but
is.
it did do a pivot successfully to producing chips that are going to have a better profit margin, as did
Yeah,
Marvell. And so
yes,
some of those companies, even Intel, the dusty old chip maker Intel,
yeah.
has done a successful pivot. And I think that your advice to viewers is spot on. I think that the market was overpriced, and so there could be I'm not going to say market manipulation, but there could be forces at work to lower the price overall of the market. But the idea of don't buy on the way down because you don't know where the down is I think a very good one. That I have made plans, kind of like a self-discipline thing, is not to buy in February. And so February is a short month. I don't have that long to wait. But in March, we'll start thinking about which companies are going to report good. And the thing to me that I've been tracking for a few years now is the revenues. The revenues have been outstanding. And I do think NVIDIA is going to report very good revenues. Whether it's good enough for the market is another question, because sometimes they produce really excellent revenues, and the expectations were higher, so they treat it as though it was a disappointment. So you can never be 100% sure of how the market's going to react, but I do think that the general selling of America by other countries due to the mismanagement of our political policymakers. And, at some point, once we throw the bums out, I think that will ease. And so I don't think that's a long-term drain on the market, although it is a short-term effect, and it is contributing to the overall selling, the overall depleting of all American assets. And this too shall pass, I think, maybe as early as the midterms. And I do think that the markets will recover. The markets companies that are based in sectors that are going to do well, and the companies that are well positioned in those sectors. For example, we do often talk about the AI sector, and we do often talk about NVIDIA because it's well positioned in that sector. And that sector is going to produce revenues. Companies they're spending so much money now to build out data centers to support the AI infrastructure. I just think that there's so much investment in that arena that that is not going to pop as a bubble did with .com stocks, for example, in the late 1990s. I just think that that's continuing to grow and will continue to grow for the foreseeable future.
There is an interesting issue about, for example, today's jobs report. So the report was positive, and S&P, everything went up on the report. It stayed there until the market opens, and then market started to sell off. S&P, Dow Jones, Nasdaq, everything sell off. I think that these numbers are manipulated. I don't trust these numbers, and I'll tell you why. Because if you take categories by categories, everything shows a little improvement. Everything across the board. That's never happened before. Some numbers are going a little bit higher, an explanation why. Some numbers are going down, an explanation why. But when everything going higher at just a touch, One tenth or I, I don't even know if two tenths anybody made, but one tenth almost across the board. Market shot up.
It looks a little fishy.
It's else, of course. So this is something else. Now about manipulation. In old days, say 20, 30 years ago, uh, people were very cautious about possible manipulation. If it will be discovered, there could be consequences and so on. Today, with such a corruption on the very top of the US government, starting with Trump himself, so now people are not getting shy about manipulations. They're doing that out outward just because they feel this is good for them. They are not scared about possible investigation. How comes that all market makers and Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and many other lesser players, they're all acting in accord together? All stocks, all the bitcoins, all this universe of cryptocurrencies, the gold, silver, all asset classes together, they're going down. Why it's happening? Why they should elect this? And they do. Because when people are getting squeezed and there is no safe haven to hide, they will take enormous losses. Remember, let's say you have $1 million portfolio, and in a matter of 2 3 days, it's becoming 700,000 portfolio. So what you gonna do? And margin calls are coming, and you have to bring another $150,000 to cover your margin call or so. What do you think will happen? They will sell. Some of them will bring more money, which will last for another day or two, and they will get yet another margin call that you have to cover. So this will create its wave after wave effect when everything is going down, and everything you cannot hide in crypto or gold or silver or anywhere else. You are doomed because normally, say investors with substantial portfolios, let's see, even $500,000, million or more, they're normally diversified, and they have some high-tech stocks, and they have some, for example, insurance stocks, and they have some crypto probably, and some other assets. And when everything is going down at the same time, that's where you're becoming a prey. And because market makers, they know your positions. Every market maker knows their, let's see, if trader for market maker of, say, JP Morgan. So JP Morgan has all their investors, and they have levels of their exposure and how much they have to, what's happened and at what times they will get margin calls or so on. So this is all engineering. You can call it manipulation, which is probably more likely. And all of a sudden, oh, there were some explanations. It's Trump's new appointment for Feds, the Wirth. So maybe that's explanation why market went down. But I don't see why. Why his appointment is so important for the market, which would go down 10, 15%.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
some stocks went down 35 and 40%. What makes the difference of that appointment
right.
in the long run or in the short run? Because he will become Fed only chairman only in May. So what's happened now at the beginning of February with his appointment in May?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that it's a reaction to that. Although I do think that Trump did systematically try to underfund or populate the watchdog agencies that have been set up to guard against market manipulations.
Yeah.
And so he has systematically done that since he was first put into office. And that has been one of his targets, is to make it easier to do business from his point of view, but also for the people that have the money, that have the knowledge, the inside trading, the inside knowledge, for them to make a killing. And for the person who has not that knowledge, but is just doing an average investor's due diligence, that person is on the outside looking in. And, so I think that was the point of these watchdog agencies, is to make sure these manipulations did not happen. And when you weaken them, you strengthen the ability to do these manipulations. So
Yeah.
it's not surprising to see if we don't know, but it's not surprising that the speculation has risen as well.
Okay, I'll give you an example of what we know 100%. There are, they're going now for several months, if probably a year already, negotiations about peace in Ukraine. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something new happened, and I've heard it from nobody else but the President of Ukraine, Zelensky. So essentially, Trump tells him to bring his team on all these meetings in Abu Dhabi and now next in Florida, and there were several meetings before or so on. So why would Zelensky keep coming to these meetings of his team when Russia doesn't move even an inch from their demands? And they continue bombardment of Ukrainian cities, killing innocent civilians and so on. So at least Trump could ask Putin to stop these bombardments for the time that they negotiate a peace agreement. No, it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons is actually that there was essentially three tracks on these negotiations. One is a peace between Ukraine and Russia. Another one is to improve relationship between the U.S. and Russia by opening consulates and all representations and so on. So this resuming direct flights between U.S. and Moscow and so on. And the third track, the most important one, it's a track of, I call it Geschäft diplomacy. This is a track where Trump's team, especially Witkov and Kushner, they're negotiating with somebody by the name Dmitriev, who is in charge of Russia huge investment fund, and who is husband of the best girlfriend of Putin's daughter. So he has direct access to Putin. So the latest what happened is that they offered Trump a deal, $12 trillion for by June, by beginning of summer, to deliver to Putin complete surrender or capitulation of Ukraine. And then there will be this fund created of $12 trillion, where Russia put all its natural resources, oil, gas, gold, all kind of metals, rare earths, metals, just anything, whatever Russia has, 12 trillion, here is a deal. I was doing a little bit of my own investigation. What is $12 trillion? What is behind this number? If you're going to the end of First World War, where Germany was a losing side and France wanted to be vindicated because they lost a lot of people and so on. So the reparation and contribution on Germany at that time was 132 million Deutschmarks. At that time, it was an enormous figure, 132. Yeah. What that represents, it's 80. It's equal to 8,800 gold marks, and 1 mark was 0.358 of gold, which total is 47,300 tons of gold. That's what Germany had to repay. Now,
it's crippling.
In our time, this figure is equal to $3 trillion.
Right.
And here is Russia, who at least didn't lose the war yet. They're offering $12 trillion, 4 times more than defeated Germany had to pay to France and other allies. So The point, though, is the surrender of a country, completely losing its independence, somehow is being now translated to a dollar figure. So there is a price. Okay, so if you surrender, it's $12 trillion. So Russians, in my opinion, they could offer Ukrainians $1 trillion and ask them, if not surrender, at least to become friendlier so to Russians or so on. I'm not saying that this would happen. I think Ukraine would reject it anyway. However, Jim, this $12 trillion with a country that its GDP is equal to about $2 trillion. How country with GDP $2 trillion can offer a deal of $12 trillion?
Right.
What do you say?
I think that there's smoke and mirrors involved, and
Oh, yeah.
it's basically another sign that Putin thinks that he is dealing with someone that he can pull a fast one on. And
I think it treats Trump as a sick old man, greedy man, and by just offering figure of $12 trillion, if I were Trump, I would ask him to put a deposit of, say, $500 billion and then continue the discussions.
yeah.
It reminds me actually one funny story about two Jewish businessmen. One is in New York and one is in Florida. And they're negotiating to buy a gold mine in Florida. And they're working at it. And finally, he phones his friend to New York and says, the deal is done. It's $15 million, and this gold mine is ours. It's a great news. So the other guy says, "Oh, it's fantastic! Congratulations!" or so on. And then he says, "But there is one sticky part on the deal, and what is it? Well, they ask for $500 deposit."
Okay.
Deal killer is $500. So it seems
On a
to me,
$15 million deal.
yeah. So here's the 12 trillion. So ask for $500,000 deposit on that deal. So
That's funny.
this is really incredible, and it's being discussed in the open. And I heard it from Zelensky himself. So it's not a joke. So. So essentially, Trump tells Zelensky, "Oh, listen, okay, Putin is not yielding anything, but you don't care. You come, or your team comes to negotiations. Say you disagree to give any land beyond what Russian already occupied, and that's it. You're going home and your team." So that provides cover to Trump's team to continue this Geschäft diplomacy with Putin. So if Zelensky would say, "Okay, go to hell," I'm not interested. So Trump couldn't continue the negotiations with Putin because Putin he's a murderer, he's a criminal, and so on. But so is Trump. So that truck actually is doing much better than other trucks in negotiations. Okay, because to open this representation of Russia, some consulates or some other stuff. So okay, open 55 consulates in every American state. Keep going and open your consulate. So it would be infested with the spies, with the prostitutes, and so on. But it's a usual story.
Yeah. So what do you think about what's going on in the West Bank now? I was just reading about that because we're talking again. Netanyahu has and his cabinet taken a sharp right turn, and by that I mean that they're become more hawkish, and they're building and they're taking more control over the West Bank, and they're pretty much deciding that there is going to be no two-state solution. There is not going to be a Palestinian state. And they're just doing it kind of by I want to say force, but just by doing it. And and no one's going to tell him not to. So is there any role for Trump in this, or is he on their side, or how do you think that's playing out?
Well, what we know is that Trump has arranged a peace in Gaza between Israel and Hamas, whoever is there yet. And the most important point of this plan was that Hamas would have to completely surrender their arsenal of weapons and everything what they have. It was in the plan. And once that uh, proposition is satisfied, then you can talk about many other things. Two-state solution, three-state solution, 75-state solution. You can do a lot of things once there is no more fighting. Hamas refused. They did not surrender their arsenal. So therefore, you cannot negotiate when you're under the gun. You cannot negotiate anything. So the uh, Israel see it this way, and it's not just Netanyahu, it's a majority of people believe that they have to finish this unfinished war by taking all the weapons away from Hamas. And if it's not possible, they have to liquidate Hamas. And that wasn't planned 2.5 years ago or so on. So there's nothing new really happened. It just shows another flop of Trump's attempt to create some peace or something like that. You see, Trump is, if you go to all the history with the casinos and with all the bankruptcies and everything, see, Trump is not a detailed man. He doesn't look into details. He has overall concept, oh, it's nice to have a casino. 2 casinos is better than 1. 6 casinos is better than 2. Okay, now how these casinos are operating, how they can manage, so he doesn't look into it. I even one of these books that I read about this business, it shows that one wealthy Japanese player, he came to one of his casinos and he played $1 million game. And Trump was sitting in the office and he was reporting what's happening and so on. And Trump didn't have a clue what game he was playing, what the conditions, maybe change conditions slightly in favor of the casino. So he didn't understand the gaming process. So how that man can be in charge of casinos and now in charge of whole country, the far the biggest and wealthiest country in the world, you put a complete idiot to run this country. So then you have all tariffs, you have so many things going on. It's incredible. And what makes people think that he could be somewhat successful there if all his life it's a failure after failure after failure? So what would make him successful as US president? But listen, people hated Democrats so much, so they decided, okay, it's better to have a convicted criminal, a crook, than to submit to liberals. I'm not trying to defend Democrats; they made their fair share of mistakes.
Of course.
But still, it's. But maybe people are now, especially independents. I think they will change their mind. A lot of them who voted for Trump, I think this time they will not.
Yeah, I think one of the issues the last time around was immigration, and I don't think Biden played that hand very well.
Yeah.
And that left them open. But now we have people in masks shooting American citizens while they're restrained. And I think the average American, the average U.S. citizen thinks that this is not what we signed up for. Not to mention, kidnapping, foreign government officials and, seizing boats in international waters and all these things are breaking international laws, though there are no consequences. And but I think the vision of a 5-year-old with a little cute little hat on being used by ICE agents to try to get other people to come out. These types of things are tug at the heartstrings of Americans. And it turns out that we just really didn't have the problems with immigrants that Trump was trying to make us, and the whole network news channel was trying to make us believe that we had. It just wasn't the case. And now people are seeing that, if you, as Benjamin Franklin once said, if you place security above liberty, you deserve neither. And
Yes, Jim. Now, I'd like to mention actually that immigrants, I'm not talking about criminals here and there. I mean, they should be prosecuted, whether they're legal immigrants or illegals, it doesn't matter. I'm talking about normal immigrants who are coming here as a hardworking people who are take almost any jobs when they're arriving to the country. They are trying to raise their families and get their rent or buy a house or something.
Far the most common story.
And they are, believe it or not, they are paying taxes. Mm-hmm. And they're paying their taxes in full. It's only later, 10, 20 years later, they're becoming Americanized. They're getting tax lawyers and they try to save on taxes. So they're becoming usual, average American after probably more than 20 years later. So your immigrants in their first 10, 20 years, that's your best source of taxes. They're honest, hardworking people.
Doing jobs that we wouldn't do and starting businesses that we wouldn't start without them.
Exactly. And what's interesting to me, for example, you may disagree with me, the only difference between legal and illegal immigrants, if you take two of them working on similar jobs, making similar money, paying taxes or so on, the only difference is that the first one, he paid a lawyer $10,000 to fill up the application, put letters here and there. The other one skipped that process. He didn't pay a lawyer $10,000. In fact, I more sympathetic to a guy who didn't pay lawyer $10,000 because he saved $10,000, which, first of all, some of them didn't have this $10,000 available. Now, if they had it, they'd rather use it to prosper economically and buying a car and do something positive for their family, rather to pay a lawyer to put some blanks here and there.
Some unknown process that he doesn't understand, and whether it help him or not, he doesn't know. So, yeah, I can totally understand being in that situation. And, it's just the promise of a better way of life is the appeal for these people, and we used to have compassion for them, and we've become hateful. And so, I said whether or not our better angels will sing this next election, and but the whole thing is that this leads to what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in much of the world is a rise of nationalism and the protection of trying to keep people away and keep people out. And, it's against the whole idea of free trade. We used to cooperate and trade with one another, and cooperation lifts all boats. And this idea of militant antagonism towards each other as countries, this is just going to deplete all resources. And I see this is taking a hold on the American economy. I think that the promises of the Republicans and the Trump administration in particular about what they were going to do for the economy have already been obviously fallen flat. And there has to be something that we do that's different than what's being done now. Employment is down. As I say, the January figures of unemployment were largely there were more jobs than they kind of thought, but it was still mediocre, and it was mostly concentrated in the healthcare industry. And there's so many people looking for jobs, and the jobs are fewer, and prices are still rising. And because of the tariffs, our choices are fewer. It costs more to not get what you want. And, people are feeling the pinch, and people are reporting that they don't have confidence in the future of the country. They don't think that they're going to be better off next year than they are now.
And inflation is not going down at all.
No.
It's a very persistent, and in fact it could go higher. Then AI are killing all the entry level jobs. So the people who are completing today, they're getting their diploma. I really don't understand what they're going to do. They have no job experience. Okay, they have some kind of diploma. They normally would have to start with entry positions and prosper in their new employment. But today they cannot even get that. So I think the good business today, in my opinion, is opening soup kitchens. I think that will, all these new diploma holders will end up with that.
Well, there's no question that the AI field will produce fewer jobs and cost more than they produce. But one of the things that I think is going to be necessary, and this is still something that liberal arts majors can help with the AI economy,
Yes.
in the sense that there's a lot of garbage data being spewed out without anyone refining it and alchemizing it into usable data. And so these are the types of things that if you have a liberal arts major and you have the ability to read data and to sift through it and produce what's really necessary, then people will pay a lot of money for that.
Well, you see, for example, today in the law firms, they're using AI to prepare briefs for court proceedings. So, okay, once in a while they're making some small mistakes, or at least if you read it, you recognize that it was prepared by AI.
Right.
Now, the thing is that on the other end, it will be read also by AI. And they wouldn't care about those little mistakes here and there. So the both sides are coming with briefs prepared and checked by AI. So who needs this? Okay, they have to pay for AI probably $20 a month, or they have to have a law clerk, paralegal or whoever, and they will have to pay them $75,000 a year. Okay, which makes a lot of difference. So there will be briefs, so they will be not 100% correct. There will be 99.5 probably. Okay, it doesn't change anything, except that both firms will save a lot of money. Now, how do you like the latest? Like before we finish, I want to mention something about Trump is in a business of asking Canada for opening this new bridge between the Ontario and Michigan. Canada paid, it was built in the last 5 or 6 years. It's completed. Canada paid 100% of the costs. Bridge is owned half and half by Canada and Michigan. So Trump is saying that for everything what United States did for Canada, I want to have 50% of that bridge. So where the 50% could come? So you have to tell Canada to spending all this money and say, okay, we have no more interest in that bridge, or you have to elbow Michigan and say, well, Michigan, who you are? You're part of United States. I'm at the top of the United States, so I'm ordering you to sign up all this your interest in the bridge to me, to the United States. So this is kind of a it's even worse than trying to take over Greenland. Okay, so Greenland you can negotiate with Denmark, with Greenland, or something at least quite questionable still. But with the bridge, he has no leg to stand on.
Yeah.
So he's just making waves simply to make himself, or he is trying to get away from Epstein files. That's more likely explanation.
He does have a tendency to try to change the news narrative, and the Epstein files, have been released, and some names have been redacted so that we know more than we used to know. But the thing is that there's plenty of evidence that they were close associates, and just what we know of his character. To me, there's nothing that's going to be shocking to me.
Jim, by the way, very interesting about the reduction of Epstein files. So it was believed that the original files ended up with the Department of Justice, and they, before releasing them, they redacted some names for security purposes, so on. So two congressmen, one Republican and one Democrat, they were allowed to see unredacted original files. Guess what? There were several reductions of these files already, even before Department of Justice got them into their possessions. How that happened? Who redacted the files? Under what directions? I think there will be a special investigation on that too.
Yeah. Wow.
We'll see. It's now international situation, because a lot of governments now conducting their own investigation of Epstein files. So it's not going to die very quickly, regardless of what Trump is will come up with some other tricks about the breach or some other issues. Anyway, Jim, listen. We don't know what's next week will bring us on the stocks.
Well, let's look at my stock portfolio right now and see. While we were on the show, the S&P is still in green, but the Nasdaq and Dow are red. So
okay.
And most of my screen, it's mixed, but more red than green. So.
Well,
usually our Wednesdays we've been very happy talking about green, and so I'm not buying yet, but we're going to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're at the bottom yet.
Keep your ammunition dry. Get ready. It's not there yet. I'm afraid that there will be more, especially I know that after Wednesday comes Thursday and Friday, normally they're all down days. I thankfully keep my high dividend earning stocks like NVDY and GDXY. Yeah, today they offered the dividends. Nothing great, but still quite substantial. And I have large positions on both this event. So it comes to every week $2,000 plus every week. With the high dividends or with the low dividends, it's 2,000 plus. So that I continue doing, even if I figured out if I will take a beating on these two stocks, because overall market would go down, it's quite possible. So it's still paper loss, but the dividends are real.
That's right.
Plus,
you don't have a loss in the stock unless you sell it, and the dividends go into your bank account. So.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that's helps to navigate this not so easy market.
It's another, and I bought NVDY because you suggested it. Oh, it must have been over a year ago, and it's hasn't performed. If I was buying it for its performance, I wouldn't be happy. But as you say, dividends are another way to go. Take the sting out of the red.
Yeah. So if you will add up, which I did a few weeks ago, I completed at the end of the year, no, at the beginning of this year, sometimes in January, I took the complete down of what is my paper loss and how much I actually got paid. I'm still on the plus quite heavily. And the paper loss is a paper loss. So what can I do about that? I figured out that a few, I don't know exact number, but few more weeks with collecting these dividends, I think all my position will be paid off. And the rest will be just a gravy to...
It's right. Playing house money now. So good job. Well done.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week. And thank you for having me this week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jim. And have a good trading week. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Same place, same time.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye, everybody.